hopefully from Andy Reid. But I don't think it's anything serious.
Yeah, you're getting a little bit thin at the cornerback room with Delane and the shoulder, and it seems like you've talked about it a couple times yesterday on the drive with Carrington Harrison, but would love to hear your thoughts on this here if you have any updates. But it seems like Monsour Delane's shoulder is a little bit more serious than a shoulder tweak. It in the sense of if you tweak it mid-June and you still can't have any contact on it 6 weeks later, I mean, I'm taking that as more than a shoulder tweak. What are you getting from that? And then, Mitch, if you want to talk about the state of the cornerback room at all, would love to hear your thoughts because you've got Delane with the shoulder. Snead is ramping up slowly.
Yep.
But now Christian Fulton's out as well. That's 3 of your top 4 guys working through something at this point in time.
Yeah. I never thought it was a tweak. I was just hoping that they were going to have, the rehab and some physical therapy and that I don't know if it was just pain within his shoulder. I guess there would have been to some degree. But the issue that we've learned now is that the medical staff is not comfortable with the imaging of his shoulder, whatever's going on with it. And so they want that to be fully healed whenever he's, gotten the clearance to take off that yellow jersey. He looks so odd compared to everybody else on the practice field because you just don't see a yellow 5 playing defense. And he's doing as much as he can in terms of, hey, keep him, my feet active, trying to stay conditioned. He's not totally off to the side. One of the cool things is I don't know if you've ever went through this, Mitch, but he's in the huddle. He hears the play call from Nick Bolton, the quarterback of the defense, and then he sprints to the sideline. And I mean, this is for every 7-on-7, every team period that we see, which is of course 11-on-11 against the first team offense. So it sounds like it could be a couple weeks. I told Carrington on the radio yesterday that if the Chiefs had a preseason game this weekend, it doesn't appear like he would play. And so I think there's real concern now as to whether or not he's going to be available for the first preseason game. But that's the update we have. I don't think there's anything of a huge concern about opening night. No one has said that to me. But I do think the team's plan for him for the preseason has probably been altered at this point.
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty concerned. Not something you want to see. And I mean, if you want to start with Fulton, last year it felt like the fan base was like, why isn't this guy playing? We signed him. I mean, people wanted to make $10 million out to be this huge contract, not a big deal. But
right.
Why isn't he playing? And the reports we got were just not fully healthy and hasn't worked himself back into shape. And then, we saw him a couple of weeks at the end of the season when season was over. And of course, I mean, we as fans didn't really know what to look for from the cornerback position, but we were like, hey, he looks pretty good. Why wasn't he out there more often? So the fact that, you start off camp and the second day in pads, all of a sudden a hip injury is, notoriously not the most fun and not the easiest to just kind of get over. Could that be nagging? Could that be something that all of a sudden you got the hip and now you're compensating with the hamstring or the knee or the calf or something else? That's definitely a worry at such a twitchy, quick position. Yeah, a little bit of a worry there. And then with Delane, I mean, he was supposed to be the Trent McDuffie replacement. I mean, quite literally. And they said, after the draft, we got him. He's versatile, gives us maybe a little bit more scheme versatility than Trent did, being able to play man coverage, zone, kind of some of the Spags disguise stuff. So I don't really know what a yellow jersey for DBs means, especially early on in training camp. You're not doing a ton of hitting anyway, especially at that position. Maybe they just don't want Kenneth to run full speed into him and kind of, bury into him when he's expecting to get the ball punched out. But if that's the case, if you can't take a helmet to the shoulder of a guy who's not necessarily trying to break your tackle, just trying to be strong, that's also worrisome. So,
and
I would say
I'm so happy you said that, Mitch, because I didn't want to be the one to say it. You're the player. You've done this in the past. They're just thumping right now. They're I think maybe
they will go live.
Yeah.
Then you pull them out of live periods if you need to. So Coach Reid is one of the few guys that still does go live. And when he does, it's not ones versus ones, it's ones versus twos. So if Delane was out there, it'd technically be against the second offense. Not that those guys are weaker or less strong or whatever, but just in the sense that that's how Coach Reid does things. he tends to get into that more on the short yardage goal line days and throws in a couple drives throughout practices. Typically, whatever it is, a week and a half into training camp, you would have already been, a week into pads. You would have started the live days. I think he used to go live maybe on the 4th pad of practice, 5th pad of practice. But now with the ramp up period and all that, he'll probably go live in the next few days, maybe creeping into next week before the preseason game. So yeah, from a defensive back perspective, you're not doing a ton to use that shoulder. You're not, kind of throwing yourself in there. If you are, you're theoretically wrapping up. You're not like going in there to thud up high. So yeah, if they're saying he can't, wrap guys up and absorb contact from running backs or receivers, I mean, I'm not going to pretend like the receivers are necessarily bringing more thump than any of the running backs would be. That's more worrisome than I thought it would be heading into camp. And to the question, no, I've never been in a huddle, taken a break, and then gone and either played my position and just not been allowed contact, or been the 12th guy in the huddle to go in the opposite direction. I get the idea of it. Like, you want to keep them mentally engaged. You want them to hear what it's like coming from Bolton and all those things. But no, it looks like maybe special circumstances. And I guess the positive thing we can say is that they think he's far enough along that like that is beneficial to him, that it's not just like, all right, he's going to need September off and then we'll get to him in October. Like they still want to keep him as engaged, mentally as possible. But yeah, it's definitely worrisome between the pair of those guys, because it's two people that I think the team is relying on. Whatever the fan base wants to think of Fulton, I think that is something, defensively that we're still going to rely on this year.
Yeah, so you've got Fulton, who was injured a lot of last year, had a knee cleanup procedure in the offseason, and then I can't remember what the injury was, but it was like week 1 or week 2, very early on in the season, he got banged up again.
It was the knee.
It was the knee?
I'm pretty confident it was the knee. If people remember, they weren't, I don't think they were saying this publicly, but they tried it again, I think in like late September. It obviously had some swelling, some pain involved, and then they said, okay. Now, to be fair, they had Trent McDuffie, they had Jalen Watson, so it wasn't like a dire situation. But their hope was, okay, he's not going to be really available for the Buffalo Bills game. We'll have the bye week, and then we'll ease him back in against the Denver Broncos after the bye week. And they did that, and the results were not good. So then they said, well, let's slow it down again, and then we'll slowly build you up. And unfortunately, by the time he was ready to play, was against, I think, either the Chargers or the Titans. And at that point, they were eliminated from the season. So the knee was a little bit, to Mitch's point, nagging or just lingering over the course of the year. The Chiefs think he should be fine in terms of that. But yeah, you don't want another thing to just pop up right when training camp is starting to get really interesting.
Yeah, what gets me a little concerned just as a fan is you're talking about Fulton with injury history from last year that affected most of the offseason, and then the first day in pads he's getting dinged up, and it could be pretty minor, and that's the hope. But then you have Delane with the shoulder that's longer than expected, and then Snead is kind of one of the next guys outside of Noel Williams, but he has been banged up for a while. A couple years with the Titans, only played half the year each season, or roughly.
And my understanding or my projection is, does L'Jarius really need the preseason? Maybe, maybe not, but you could maybe feel comfortable letting him get as much time, a longer ramp up, right? That thing could be like a I'm trying to think of a carrier aircraft, like one of those giant ones from like Star Wars. I guess you could let that thing load up for like a month before we get to like September, and then you say, okay, like, it's go time. But
as you know, I mean, to interrupt real quick, the Chiefs don't really do that. Like, they don't. No, it's just like, you're healthy, you're out there. You're not healthy, you're not out there. Push to get on the field, and don't really do vet days. Like, so that would be a little bit of, again, another kind of special circumstance kind of thing. So it'll be interesting. But does he need like all the work the way maybe Delane does to like hear the play calls and to be in the huddle and all that?
Correct.
Like, no, he doesn't need that part of it. But does he need the physical aspect of, going against Thornton, going against hopefully Xavier when he's healthy, to like mimic what Waddle is going to look like in week 1, like what some of those other guys, like, the physical side is the part you can't just like go out there and just expect to have your timing and your quicks under you when you haven't, or when you've been that Star Wars jumbo jet that's taking off on a slow descent.
Yeah.